I'm Scott Fybush from Fybush Media here at the Wheatstone booth at NAB 2018. And one of the highlights of visiting the Wheatstone booth, and really one of the highlights of NAB in general, is the opportunity to spend some time with Wheatstone's Minister of Algorithms and Blues, Steve Dove. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
So Steve, you've been busy with some of the technical presentations. I know I saw you over at the Public Radio Engineering Conference.
Oh, that was fun.
That was a neat one, talking about not just stereophonic, but quadraphonic, surround sound, ambisonic microphones. Tell me what you've been talking about here at the NAB show.
This one sprang from an actual need for processing we're doing here at Wheatstone. And it was everything to do with how do we deal with highly clipped and highly compressed program material which comes in all the time.
It never happens like that. I know what you're talking about.
Not in the slightest. In fact, a slide I have in the presentation, it's the first time I ever took a picture of this, was of Kelly Clarkson's Since You've Been Gone, which is an early 2000s thing. And it's by far from the earliest example. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was listening through our playout system and going, that was clipping. So I went back, and sure enough, there it was in Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman, zeroed in. And of course, it's not the first examples. I'm sure I could go back to the 90s and find something. Anyway, this has posed an increasing problem because as the record production mafia have been steadily slicing audio harder and harder and harder, and not in a nice way. No. I mean, here in radio, we've been dealing with clipping for a lifetime. We've gone to extreme extents to make clipping good and clean and transparent, and the record companies are still like 20 years behind us. But we're confronted with the issue of these awful pieces of mastered stuff coming and smacking us in the face. How do you deal with it? And the big issue that confronts us is that in normal processing, earlier processing, we've been using filters and technology which don't do us any favors. If you can imagine a clipped waveform, flat at the top, flat at the bottom, as soon as it enters any conventional processor, those flat bits get smushed and rotated down into the main body of
technical term there, smushed.
Smushed, right? Yes. And there's once it's buried in the main body of the music, you've lost it. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, declipping has been, in the news for the last few years, and it can be done really well indeed. There are any number of techniques, and we've played with them, and yes, you can create an impressive synthesis of what's been hacked off. It isn't a replacement, it's a synthesis. And the results can sound quite pleasant. And for streaming, yeah, okay, totally valid, I'll buy that. But for FM processing, you've just bought yourself a bigger peak to average ratio. You've got a bigger signal than you started off with, and you've got to hack it down and then ultimately pass it through a clipper anyway. So, bad news. If you don't declip, you have these flat, information-free chunks. And it dawned on me that if we made the entire processor phase-free, we could carry these non-information pieces at the peaks, of the positive and negative peaks of the waveform, essentially pretty much where they belong, at the peaks and at the top and the bottom, all the way through the processor, and then subsume them with our own far superior clipping. So instead of the horrible, nasty distortion generating clipping which is in the program material to begin with, we smush them off, and it's generally a more preferable sound.
Steve, we have to go. Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure talking with you. Steve Dove, the Minister of Algorithms at Wheatstone. Thanks for being with us at NAB 2018.
Cheers.